Welcome to the UFO Woman Show. I'm your host, Melisa Kennedy. And today I am with Alix Toulme, and he is a candidate for the U.S. Congress this year in 2020. He's an independent, and he has a lot of experience with extraterrestrials, and he also has some UFO disclosure that he would like to have as part of his campaign, and I am really honored to have him here today. So, Alix, welcome to the UFO Woman Show. How are you?
I'm doing well, Melissa, and thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So let's go ahead and start a little bit about your background. Tell us about yourself and, what's your background as far as ufology and politics and things like that.
All right, well, like you said, Melissa, my name is Alix Toulme Jr., also known affectionately as Saint Christopher by friends and neighbors for my natural ability to talk to spirits and for other paranormal gifts. I'm a 32-year-old U.S. Navy veteran and independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Tampa, Florida's 14th District. Furthermore, I'm the founder of C4FC, the Christianati, and the Global Anti-Satan Alliance. C4FC is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating Christians primarily about the reality of extraterrestrial life in the cosmos, and also to help initiate First Contact, which is the first official, public, and diplomatic meeting between extraterrestrial and mankind.
Oh, wow. So, let's dive into that a little bit more, because that sounds so interesting, and I know that my audience is probably really interested in that. So give us a little bit more about what your plan is, what you do with that, and, just give us a little bit more meat in that department.
C4FC was conceived as an organization to mostly as an educational initiative to educate, because I believe within the Christian community, I'm Christian, I'm a Catholic, and what I realized was that within the Christian community, there's a general lack of awareness of issues regarding UFOs and extraterrestrial life. So I saw that there was a need for someone to educate the public so that, what we don't want Christians to be unprepared for this reality.
Right.
We don't want
anybody to just freak out on us and get scared and think it's the end of the world and, not be educated, which I completely agree with. That's one of the things we do here on the UFO Woman Show is we educate, because the worst thing that we can have happen is not be ready.
Right.
And that's the greatest fear, right? When you're the fear of the unknown and you're not sure what's about to occur. That's, I think, when panic sets in. Yes. So you're kind of doing the same thing I'm doing, it sounds like. You're educating, right?
Yes.
And that's your goal? That's your mission?
Yes, that's my goal, to prepare the Christian community in the United States and worldwide. That's why it's Christians for First Contact USA, to prepare the American people for First Contact or disclosure, whichever comes first.
Okay. Which one do you think will come first?
That's an interesting question. We've already had First Contact.
Right.
So
many times, haven't we?
Yes. There are allegedly Eisenhower met with extraterrestrial beings, or a delegation of extraterrestrials back in the 50s, right?
Yes.
So we've already had First Contact. It's just being kept secret.
It is. And why do you think that is?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think, Melissa, there are billions of people on this planet, 7 billion. And I think that 80 to 90% of them have religious beliefs. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the primary reasons why the government is a little bit scared of releasing this information to the public is because, like we said earlier, it would cause religious panic and pandemonium.
A lot of social unrest if you're not prepared, regardless of what your beliefs are. I think that's probably one of the reasons that disclosure hasn't happened 100%. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree with that. And I think a revelation of this scale and proportion takes a lot of time to roll out. And I think the government is aware of that. And I'm not justifying their actions here.
Right, right. And I agree with what you're saying, actually, Alix, because, for, 75 years, we have perpetuated the cover-up. And I get it. I mean, I understand initially why that happened, because it was, Roswell, New Mexico, 1947. That was really the first big crash that we can cite, and that the government stepped in, the military stepped in. And, at the time, we weren't ready for that. I mean, the public, there's no way that they would be prepared for such a huge disclosure. So cover-ups started to happen to protect the people, and I get that. That's national security. I understand all of that. But unfortunately, what happens is we start to have a domino effect. One thing leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the other. So I think we're in a real predicament right now, because it's like, when are we ready to have disclosure? And I love that you brought up Eisenhower, because, historically, our presidents have all wanted to be the disclosure president. Think about it. Every time they campaign, what do they want to say? Well, we're going to disclose, all the information about UFOs. But it never happens. We thought Jimmy Carter was going to be one. And Jimmy Carter actually was one of the only two presidents to ever have a UFO experience that they admitted to.
Right.
Jimmy Carter had an experience in Georgia that he saw a UFO along with several other people. So I know he really wanted to find out about UFOs, but he didn't. At least not that we know of. I think he had a briefing, and I do believe that that briefing did have him concerned, because there were several in the White House that said that they saw him at the desk, and his head was down in his hands, and he was very upset after that briefing. So I don't know what he was told, but maybe it was something a little disturbing that he didn't like to hear. I don't know. But definitely Jimmy Carter was one of the first. Then we had Ronald Reagan. He was another one that had a UFO experience while he was in an airplane. And the people that were in the airplane, including the pilot, had seen the same exact UFO. So I know that really prompted him to have different actions in his office that were probably a result of the UFO sighting that he saw. So, when you talk about disclosure and you talk about all of this that's happened in our history, in our political history, it's interesting because I look at the presidency, for example. You're looking at, 4 years, 8 years if you're lucky, but usually 4 years, right? So you're a temporary resident. And the whole cover-up of the UFOs and all this is so much bigger than 4 years. So as, the CIA or the government or whoever it is, the powers that be, that have a lot of this information, I mean, from their standpoint, they're probably thinking, well, this guy or this girl is only going to be here for 4 years. So, let's not give them too much information, because what we have is spans a lifetime of 75 years, right?
Right. And I think within the U.S. government itself, you have the deep state, and some believe that the deep state is sort of a shadowy aspect of the government. And I think that people or officials in the deep state don't trust most presidents with this kind of information, because they don't know how they would react.
That's it. I agree, Alex. Yeah. I agree 100%. That was very prolific, by the way. Yeah. I like what you're thinking, and I agree with you, and I think a lot of our audience would probably be on the same page with you on that.
And whichever president goes forward with disclosure, you're right. They're going to go down in history.
Yeah.
They're going to be remembered for all time, because disclosure is the most important event in human history.
And do you want to be that guy? I mean, let's think about that for a second. That's kind of, it's got the pros and the cons, right? I mean, if let's say the current president, let's say Trump, I don't know. Let's say he one day decides he's going to disclose all this information. Well, do you want to be that guy where, for the last 2 years you haven't said, and now all of a sudden you do? So then it's like, it's good, but it's bad. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like, well, why haven't you told us that from day one? Well, you kind of get yourself in a predicament where it's like, if you disclose, you almost kind of have to do it on the first day in office, right? I mean, you kind of do, because if you don't, you become part of the problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you want to be that guy. I mean, should it be the military? Maybe the military should be the ones that do it. I don't know. I mean, it's a great debate to have, because it's like, who should be that person that discloses?
Looking at Trump.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's big.
Looking at Trump, looking at Donald Trump, and looking at his administration and the way it's been handled so far, I honestly don't think that we're going to get a disclosure from Donald Trump unless there's some event maybe
that provokes it, like poking the bear.
Of course.
Right? I mean, where you're like forced to do it. But do you want to be, I don't know if he wants to be that guy though.
And I don't know either.
I don't know. I've seen him in interviews. Some people, Tucker Carlson, I know, point blank asked him, and his response was real vague.
Right.
Like he didn't say yes or no. It was just kind of generic.
You can't be president of the United States in the 21st century and not think about this issue. I mean, UFOs and aliens must have crossed his mind at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
They must have.
And I wonder, is he being told not to say anything, or is he taking that stance for his own reasons? I wonder.
Well, what could those reasons be?
I don't know. I mean, I think that, he's been in presidency for too long now to where he could act like he didn't know anything. I think that's kind of a bad position to be in. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a no-win. It's actually literally a no-win situation for him right now.
I think we should mention that Trump is not entirely unaware of this issue because he did launch the Space Force.
Good point. I am so glad you brought that up.
He launched a Space Force.
Yes, he did.
And his reason for doing so was we need to defend space, right?
Right. From what?
From what? Exactly.
I mean, are we defending it from other alien races, or are we defending it from each other?
Right.
I don't know. That's like the next frontier, isn't it?
Yes, space is the final frontier.
It really is.
As Star Trek says.
One of my favorite shows. Do you like that show?
I love that show.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yes,
I like it. Show. I like it too. So, all right. So obviously, you're into UFOs. Welcome to the club, right?
Yeah.
This is a good community to be a part of.
I did want to say something. There are some things that worry me about the UFO community.
Okay.
Because I think there's a tendency to take UFOs, not just UFOs, but the extraterrestrials that are piloting UFOs, and kind of create this UFO religion. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that, I think we have religion and we have ufology, and the two should be merged but separate, but stay separate. And
so be spiritual,
yeah,
but also be open-minded to the universe and all of the beings that are out there. Is that what you're saying?
I think we should be spiritual, but we shouldn't make a religion out of UFO subculture.
Gotcha.
I think there's a danger inherent there, and I think, but another important thing to add is that some of these UFOs, they could be one of three things. They could be extraterrestrial beings. Mm-hmm. They could be angelic or demonic.
Right.
Or they could be even time travelers from the future.
They could be, or they could be our own.
Or they could be our own,
right? Our own military
secret military craft. Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting because as we are starting to closely monitor some of these technologies that are coming out right now, we're learning more and more that we have more technology than we realized. I mean, we're far advanced in our technology than what we even have been told. I mean, we know that for sure. They're technologies that they're developing, whether it's from crash UFOs, they've reversed engineered it, or whatever the case may be. They are learning more and more technology at such a speed that I don't think the American public has a clue of how much we know. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
And I also wanted to say that it's interesting that you brought up technology, because technology is actually part of my 2020 platform.
Oh, okay. Tell us about that.
I have 5 items on my agenda. The 5th item is to end the illegal suppression of new technology. So in 2017, there were 5,784 patents for new inventions and new technologies that were slapped with national secrecy orders.
Really?
So yeah, anytime a new invention is created and the inventor applies for a patent, the U.S. government has to screen it, and if they determine it to be a threat to national security, they will slap a secrecy order on it, and it will never see the light of day. It'll go into the black hole of Calcutta.
Oh no, not the black hole. Okay, wow, interesting.
So I think what I have to do is increase public awareness about this issue so that we can get new technologies out there to benefit all of society and for the betterment of mankind.
Nice. I like your answer on that. That's great. Well, okay, so tell us a little bit about some of your personal experiences. I know we've talked before the show started, so let's share that with the audience.
Yeah, my story is very weird and very paranormal, but I embrace it, you know? It's part of my story. So I joined the Navy right out of high school, enlisted in the U.S. Navy. I was stationed on board the USS Carl Vinson, which is a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. So after 4 years of distinguished service in the U.S. Navy, I moved to New York City, my birthplace, and I began studying at St. John's University, which is a Catholic university in Queens, New York. And so I studied theology and religious studies, and I graduated in May of 2012.
Okay.
And then I started studying at an Ivy League school, Columbia University in New York City.
Wow.
And that's when my experiences really began to happen. I began hearing, one day I began hearing voices in my mind, like a soft, faint, and subtle voice in my head.
Okay.
And it sounded like people were talking like in the background. Mm-hmm. And I had never experienced anything like this before.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 25 years old.
25, okay.
Yeah. And I really didn't know what I was experiencing, so I actually went to the hospital to speak to a doctor.
Yeah.
And you know, everything checked out fine. Mm-hmm. So months later, I got accepted to King's College in London. And so I traveled to England. I was doing a master's program in ethical leadership.
Oh, okay.
So I traveled to London, and it kind of went into remission, the voices.
Did it?
Yeah, for a while there.
Female, male, or unisex? Could you tell?
That's an interesting question.
Okay.
All right. So some of the voices are male, and some of the voices are female. You can clearly tell, just like, you know, audible speech.
Yeah.
You can tell if they're male or female. But in October of 2012, as a graduate student at King's College in London, they began to identify themselves as an elite unit of extraterrestrial beings.
Wow. Did they say exactly which ones?
No, when you're dealing with, see, at the time, I thought that this was telepathic communication.
Right.
But what I began to realize was that I was actually a psychic medium, that this was actually spiritual communication.
Gotcha.
Actually,
which is so interesting. I think we should really talk about that for just a second.
Sure.
For those in our audience that maybe isn't familiar with what a psychic medium is, could you maybe give them a little brief description as to what that means?
Yes. A psychic medium are people who are highly attuned to the vibrations and frequencies of the spiritual dimension, of the spirit world. And these people are highly clairaudient or clairvoyant. They have many psychic abilities. They're very highly sensitive. Mm-hmm. And they can sort of tap into that spiritual world. And that's what psychic mediums do.
Great. So at that point in your life, you realized that you're a psychic medium. I mean,
yes. It wasn't until 2018, in June 2018, my psychic abilities spiked.
Nice.
And they reached kind of a peak.
Okay.
I began speaking to spirits at ease and with consistent regularity.
Okay.
And what I began to realize was that the mind, body, and soul are all three distinct entities.
Yes.
The mind is...
But connected.
Yes, they're interconnected. Right. Yes, the mind, body, and soul are all three interconnected but separate. So I began listening to digital audio on my phone, my tablet, and my computer, and I began hearing voices from people that were being broadcast over the air.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I would listen to a speech, and whoever was giving the speech, I would able to create a spiritual link with that person. So, since 2018, I've communicated with the spirits of many wealthy, influential, and powerful people of the world, both living and deceased, but not to their conscious minds, to their spirit or their spiritual essence.
And both dead and alive?
Both deceased and alive.
Anybody that we would maybe know?
I don't want to name names.
Okay. All right. Darn, I was hoping I'd get a little, inside information, but that's okay.
I'm very famous in the spirit world. And,
okay.
But you have to ask yourself, why are these living people, why are their souls, why am I able to communicate with their souls? Isn't that weird?
Yeah. Well, maybe not. Maybe not, Alex, because maybe this is your path. Maybe this is what you're being led to do because there's some information that you need to share with the rest of us.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to get into. So I believe that my gift is a gift of God. I believe that I came up with a theory, and it's called mass soul removal.
Oh, that sounds intriguing.
Yes, this theory suggests that spirits who did not either have faith in the Holy Son of God, according to my belief, Christ Jesus, or who did not live holy, moral, or righteous lives trusting in the Lord God, have been sort of removed from their physical bodies by divine or supernatural agent, and they're being detained in mass in the spiritual underworld. Now, the underworld is not a bad place, let's remember that.
Okay.
It's just a place where spirits go and kind of wait.
So maybe a lower level vibration kind of thing, or not? Like a dimension? Is that what you're saying?
It's an alternate dimension of temporal and spatial reality.
Okay.
But I believe that they're being detained there sort of in a waiting room, kind of waiting for perhaps Judgment Day or for perhaps the apocalypse, or let's hope none of those things happen.
So if they're waiting, could that possibly be some paranormal activity that people experience? Could that possibly be connected?
Well, it all ties into religious beliefs, because some Christians well, let's start off with Jews. Our Jewish friends, they believe that when you die, your soul goes to Sheol, and in Sheol, I don't really know if you're able to communicate with spirits in Sheol, but that's exactly what I'm doing. That's my ability.
You are doing it.
That's what I'm doing.
So you are communicating with spirits in another dimension.
Yes.
All right. So they are people that have moved on. They've left their physical form, and they've reached the spiritual form.
Yes. And what's so interesting about this is that I'm not just speaking to deceased people. I'm speaking to people that are actually here alive. Now, it could be that it's some kind of a hoax or a deception. It could be that my mind is being tricked somehow.
Could be.
It could be maybe, because we have to remember, in the extraterrestrials come in two varieties. You have benevolent and you have malevolent.
Yin and yang.
Yin and yang.
It's the balance of the universe.
So perhaps there is a faction of extraterrestrials that have a malevolent leaning, or
could be. It's like people. It's like humans.
Just like humans.
You've got good and bad, no matter what, right?
You've got the good and the bad, yes. So it could be that, and another thing I wanted to mention is that because I'm a Christian, obviously on Earth, let's take Earth for example, Muslims, some of them treat Christians friendly, but sometimes there are tensions. There's a lot of tension between religions.
True
and
with all,
it's natural.
And politics too. It doesn't matter which one religion or politics. They both divide people, right?
Yes.
They really do. I mean, they do, because everybody has their own beliefs and everybody, has their own opinions, and that's okay. It's okay to have different opinions. It's okay to have differences, but what we have to figure out is how to live in peace. That's the trick. Would you agree with that?
I think a lot of these extraterrestrials that are telepathic and communicating to me, because I am highly clairaudient, I think they're very young. I don't think they're the elders that are talking to me, because the elders, the extraterrestrials that are elders, that are older and wiser, they probably want peace. They know. But I'm getting a really young feel from some of these ETs that I communicate to via telepathy and psychic mediumship.
Any gray? Are they grays, reptilians, Nordics? Which ones are they?
I have communicated to a plethora of extraterrestrial beings, and actually I've actually even seen some.
Wow.
I've seen some apparitions in my house. Like sometimes I would be sleeping at night, and I would wake up suddenly and look up, and I would see an apparition of a 3-4 foot tall being. Great.
So grays?
No, brown skin actually.
Oh.
Yeah, but
Okay.
the Greys are the ETs that have been working with me primarily.
Have they? Okay.
Yes.
I wondered which one was, the most dominant race of aliens that you've been talking to. Well, that's interesting. So I got to ask the question: have you seen any UFOs yourself?
Actually, this is interesting. I went to a UFO conference in 2017 in Joshua Tree, California.
Okay.
At the time, I was an intern at the United Nations Department of Peacekeeping Operations in the DDR section, working for the Democratic Republic of Congo. But I took leave of absence from there to go to the UFO conference, and I remember they had these night vision goggles.
Yeah.
And I took the night vision goggles, and I was looking up into space, and I remember seeing a lot of traffic.
Oh.
Like I could see lights going back and forth. So I think there may be even like commerce or something going on up there. But
so you have technically seen
yes,
UFOs.
I have seen UFOs.
Okay, I have too. I've seen one in my whole life. Phoenix Lights.
You witnessed the Phoenix Lights?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Wow.
I was a school teacher on an Indian reservation out there.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I saw it.
March 12th?
13th, 1997.
1997, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a mass UFO sighting.
It was. It really was. I remember talking to my grandmother. I called her back in West Virginia. I'm like, Mamaw, I don't know what I just saw, but it could be the end of the world. I don't know. I'm seeing all kinds of red lights and things in the sky. Because at the time, I was 22 years old, so I had no clue what I was seeing. I didn't know if they were bombs coming down. I didn't know. I didn't know what I was seeing.
Right.
But, thousands of people saw it. I was in my backyard in Phoenix. And I remember the next morning, all the newspapers had it on the front page. Even the governor saw it. It was really...
Simonton,
yeah, right. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. And at the time, I didn't really know... that much about UFOs. I'd seen them in movies, but,
Is that what got you into the UFO community?
Yeah, it really did. It started my journey. Yeah. So, here I am.
Yeah, for me, my story, what brought me into the UFO community is a little bit different. As a young child, I had always had an interest in aliens. Ever since I saw E.T., I was hooked.
Yes.
And,
I even had the little lunchbox.
Right.
I did a little thermos,
Right. So when I was in grade school, I took my name, which is Alix, and kind of flipped it around.
Yeah.
I told people that my name was Lixto. Or some Martian name or something.
Yeah, that's cute.
And I went around and I acted like an alien. And then in high school, I did a lot of research into UFOs. And, there was a lot of information on the web back at that time. It was 2005. And I didn't really think about it when I was in the Navy, but when I got out at St. John's, that's when it all started coming back to me.
I was going to ask you when you were in the Navy if you had any encounters, because, being on a nuclear, you said it was a nuclear ship, right?
Yeah, it was a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier.
We know nuclear locations have a lot of UFO activity.
So
as soon as you said,
UFOs,
when you said that, I was like, okay, that's interesting.
No, my experiences in the U.S. Navy were pretty mundane and pretty ordinary.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh, thank you so
for
much.
Your service.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, but I had that thought, when you were talking about that. I was like, well, I wonder if he saw anything, Okay, well, that's cool. Well, how would you feel about playing a little fun game with me real quick? It's called Melisa's Spaced Out Shouts.
All right.
Are you game for it?
I'm game.
All right, awesome. Here we go. So the way we play this game is I ask you a question, and you shout out the first thing that comes to mind. Hence the name Melisa's Spaced Out Shouts.
Okay.
All right, you cool? You ready?
Sure.
All right, first question. What 3 things would you take to Mars?
Cell phone, basketball, and Twinkies.
Twinkies! Oh, one of your favorite snacks, I'm guessing, right?
And I have to get my exercise in right after I eat the Twinkies.
Yes, that makes sense. I like your thinking. All right, cool.
You.
I haven't had a Twinkie in a long time, by the way.
Nor have I.
I miss it. Now I want one. Now I'm craving it, All right, awesome. So what's your strangest fear about aliens?
That they will expose all my deepest, darkest secrets.
Oh, good answer. All right. Who would your dream guest star, dead or alive, be on your trip to outer space?
The famous musician Rihanna.
Ooh, nice.
Maybe
Talented
we could have a
and
little
everything.
romance. That'd be
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah. She's very cute. I can
Yes.
see that. All right. Which planet are you?
Definitely Neptune.
Neptune, why?
So I can have a trident.
Yes, that is so cool. I love that, Alex. All right, and what's your favorite space-related word?
Androgynous.
Oh, nice. I always say galactic, but yeah, I like that. That's cool. All right, would you rather be stranded on the moon with an alien or Tom Hanks?
Ooh, definitely. Well, Tom Hanks would have some interesting conversation. I would love to talk about his role as Woody in Toy Story, or maybe Forrest Gump. But I have to go with an alien. I'm just too inquisitive. I got to ask them a bunch of questions. So I would go with an extraterrestrial.
Very cool. Well, that leads me to the next question. What would be your first question to the aliens?
Oh, wow. Who created you?
Ooh. Wow, and then that would just unfold a whole lot of other questions, wouldn't it?
It'll open up Pandora's box.
It really would. It really would. All right, here's the next one. Would you rather know who shot JFK or if the government was hiding UFOs and extraterrestrials in Area 51?
Well, I already know that the government is hiding UFOs at Area 51, so I guess I'm going to go with who shot Kennedy, which actually is a very good friend of mine. I know his spirit very well.
Really?
Yes.
And here you're sitting with Melisa Kennedy.
Yes.
Kind of cool, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
A little bit of a connection, maybe. I don't know. That's
Never
cool.
know.
That's cool. All right. If you could time travel like otherworldly beings, where would you go?
Oh, I would travel to the Wild Wild West. I would love to be a cowboy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Got the cowboy hat.
Ride a horse.
Yeah, cool. I like that. All right, last question, Alex. You ready?
Sure.
Which type of extraterrestrial beings would you most like to encounter? Greys, reptilians, or Nordics? You kind of already touched on this, but if you had a preference.
Greys, their personality is kind of flat. They don't have much of a personality. Nordics, if I wanted to meet a Nordic, I could just fly to Sweden. So I'm gonna go with reptilians.
You're funny.
They're the most exotic. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, thank you for playing Melissa's Spaced Out Shouts. That was cool, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, now let's get back to the serious stuff a little bit because we're having fun, right?
Yeah.
We're having a good time. Let's dive into the whole ET UFO disclosure. Your 2020 campaign. Some disclosure movements. What do you think is going to happen this year, besides your campaign, of course?
Well, my campaign is really, like I said, I have 5 items on my agenda. The first is ethics reform. I think we should implement a national code of ethics or a code of ethics for our people to live by so that they could be more ethical, moral, and righteous or responsible citizens. And I think, I often think if extraterrestrials are observing and monitoring our planet, they must be shocked and appalled at our dysfunctional society and out of control popular culture. So I think we should implement a national code of ethics for our people to live by so that they could be global and galactic ambassadors so that ET civilizations can look down upon us and say, hey, they're mature and responsible and they are ready for first contact.
I like Alex's word there. 2 words, global and galactic.
Yes.
That's awesome. I might have to steal that from you. I kind of like that.
All right.
Global and galactic. That's cool.
So the second thing on my agenda is keeping America holy. Now, if ET beings are traveling across vast distances to visit the planet Earth, then that means they've mastered science and physics. And if they've mastered science and physics, that means they've already solved other societal problems like war, crime, and poverty.
Right.
So
Star Trek.
So I don't know. Yeah, exactly. I don't know about you, but that sounds like a utopia.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Like a holy civilization.
Sounds absolutely utopian and at its utmost, best. And I really think it would be. Here's my thought process, Alex. Why can't we just all get along? I mean, really and truly, we all have differences of opinions. We all have different beliefs. But that's okay. It's okay. Because if we were all the same, we would be boring. correct?
Right.
So why can't we just all get along, respect each other's differences, but start looking at things in a more universal way? Yeah. Kind of take us out of a egotistical viewpoint and get us into a more universal viewpoint.
Yeah.
What's good for our planet? What's good for our universe? Because what we do here impacts things in the other, the other planets in the universe. And I love this idea of universal consciousness. Have you read up on that? I'm sure you have. I'm sure you've read some things.
Yeah. I'm not aware of that. What is that?
Universal consciousness. Basically, we are like a wireless internet with the entire universe. Your thought processes and we're connected, Alex.
Right.
Okay? We're connected to this person, this person, this person. And what we think and what we do impact the entire universe's consciousness, because the consciousness is alive. Think about that for a second. What we think and what we do impact everything.
Right.
We're connected. We're all connected. And so I kind of like the idea of, what we put out comes back. Karma. You could call it karma if you want to. But it's interesting because if you believe that what we do impacts every living thing on our planet and other planets, it really starts to take away, at least for me, it takes away all of the little pettiness that really doesn't matter. Yeah. I want good for you. I want good for the next person. I want everyone to be peaceful and loving and positive and really think of, how can we make this a better place to live? How can we make a positive impact in the universe?
Well, Melissa, it sounds to me like you're an enlightened being. And unfortunately, in the physical material world, not everyone is an enlightened being.
Right.
So I think what we really have to do is educate people. And I think the spirit world has to intervene here on Earth. I think, wouldn't it be wonderful if everybody had a guardian spirit that they could talk to in their mind, that would never get tired, would never grow old, they're always with you and always giving you good advice and suggestions. I think the spirit world really needs to intervene. That's why Christians want to bring down the kingdom of God, so that the spirit world can be part of the physical material world as well.
Interesting point. So how do you think the governments are going to handle all of this? Let's say, one of my guests that I had on the show a couple weeks ago, Kevin Briggs, he's had communications with a couple of extraterrestrials his whole entire life.
Right.
And they spoke to him a year ago and gave him the date of February 1st. That's in 2 weeks. That there would be some sort of a disclosure, some sort of a reveal with the Council of Eight in the United Nations. And if this mandated protocol were to happen, then February 1st and 2nd, that's kind of the start of this new age of revelation, if you will. That date was given to him as a point of contact. Now, if that were to happen, how do you think everyone's going to react? Are we ready? Do you think we're ready for that?
Well, I think Americans have been drip-fed images of aliens and
some
Nordics.
Some Hollywood images. I don't know that. Right. I don't know that I agree with some of the Hollywood versions.
Well,
but,
I mean, if you look at beings, like Predator or Alien,
that's scary stuff, man.
Yes, they could in fact exist.
They could, but it's a little scary. It's a little scary.
It's very scary, but they have no chance against the awesome military might of the United States. That's what I believe. As a Navy veteran, I think we can handle them. I think we could.
Interesting. You do.
Yeah.
You think
I have confidence that
good?
we can take them on and protect the American people.
I just hope that we don't attack first and ask questions later. I hope that we have a peaceful mindset to where we at least make the attempt to communicate peacefully. Do you know what I'm saying?
I also wanted to add, Melissa, that the United States is no longer the world's biggest superpower anymore.
Really?
Once we get UFO disclosure, guess who will be the new superpower?
The extraterrestrials.
The extraterrestrials, right.
And which ones, though? Would it be the Council of Eight, which is 8 different races? Would it be them? I've always thought that there was this intergalactic council. I've always thought this.
There has to be.
I've had this thought for a long time, years ago. You know.
I mean, you got to think we have governments here on Earth. So the ETs must have their own government.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think, but I think we can't forget about the spirit world because, like I said, I think the ET beings, you have biological beings and you have astral or non-biological beings.
Interdimensional.
And I think they're all working with each other. You know, here's an interesting thing. Have you ever seen the movie Hellboy?
Actually, we talked about that on Nerd Talk the other night. Yes.
Did you?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, in the movie Hellboy, there's this Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense, and I'm very curious if the U.S. has an equivalent agency that's top secret.
Yeah.
But
I think they might.
Yeah, they might have.
I wouldn't be surprised.
They might have a ghost walking around in a suit, and we can ask him things, but he must have incredible knowledge and foresight.
Yeah.
And intuition on future events. So. It's kind
of cool. I mean, let's face it, that's kind of neat. It's almost like science fiction has become science fact in our lifetime. I mean, a lot of the things that we grew up on. I mean, I'm a little older than you, but nevertheless, you see Star Trek, Star Wars, these things that we've seen in the movies, we've seen on TV, seem so far-fetched to a certain extent. But now that these are coming true, and to be honest, I think our technology is far beyond what we know. So when you stop and think about that, it is not out of the realm of possibility that we could have, just like you were saying, just like the Hellboy situation. I think it's quite possible.
Yes, it is possible.
You know?
Who knows what kind of activities. Actually, here's an interesting fact. In the 1970s, Project Stargate.
Yes,
the psychics that were employed by the DIA and by the U.S. Army to do remote viewing and to practice skills like telepathy and clairvoyance.
Yes.
I think it went defunct in the 1990s, but
did it though?
No. Many people claim that it kept going.
Yeah, I think it did. This is a different name.
And are we living in a state with psychic surveillance?
Yes, I think so.
That is a question, because if you think about all the terrorist plots that have been thwarted, some haven't, some have, but maybe psychics are working very hard to protect the United States. I think.
I kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. Well, definitely, I think we have a lot of abilities that we haven't tapped into. I think all of us have some psychic ability, certainly telepathy and things like that. But unfortunately, as children, we're told, that's just an imaginary friend, or, we're kind of taught and suppressed from early childhood, whether it's because it's fear or, we just, I don't know, our culture hasn't supported that, let's put it that way. But I'm seeing a trend where that's starting to change, and I think that's fantastic, because the more that we can start to use our psychic abilities and things like that, the better off as a human race, I think, we'll be, because we'll be able to communicate telepathically, and again, raising our consciousness. Raising ourselves to a universal consciousness to where, we are all in this to better ourselves as a race, but also to better ourselves as a planet and as a universe. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes, I believe I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I wanted to get back to my platform. The third item on my agenda is to hold congressional hearings on UFOs.
Yes, let's talk about that.
So if you take a look at some of the recent revelations that we've had in the news, such as the U.S. Navy and the DOD validating the three 2017 videos.
Yes, that was the best day ever in September 2019. They finally acknowledged that UFOs exist.
Yeah, so UFOs are no longer pseudoscience. It's no longer fiction. It is science fact. Something strange is happening in our skies.
Yes.
And I want to hopefully increase public awareness on this issue, and to educate Americans in Tampa Bay, Florida, and to hopefully garner enough votes to get elected in 2020. And if I get elected to the 117th Congress, I vow to rally U.S. lawmakers to hold congressional hearings on UFOs, because we must investigate what the U.S. military knows and what they might be hiding or concealing from the public.
Wow. And then you have to come back on my show.
Of course.
You have to, because that will just be epic. I mean, just to have somebody like you, in the politics arena that is for this disclosure. We would all rally behind you because we want this.
It's interesting that you mentioned rally. My plan is if I get elected and get inaugurated in January 2020, I want to, in 2021, the next year, I want to hold, maybe in the summertime, I want to have a giant rally in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I want to have a concert. I want to invite musical acts, musicians, entertainers, and I want to build a big movement. And I want it all to be about disclosure, about ending the illegal secrecy of technology and free energy.
Nice.
I want to hold this rally in 2021. If I get elected, let's hope I do, so we can change the world for good.
Great. And then I want to be there to cover it.
Yes, you'll be there.
That would be awesome. I would love that. That would be great. Well, it's certainly free energy. I mean, that's, Tesla. Let's go back to Tesla.
Nikola Tesla.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm all for that. I think that would be great. I just wonder how that would have an impact socially, but also economically. I'm not sure how that would all work out. Free energy, there goes the oil and gas companies.
Well, Melissa,
I don't know.
I think we're heading in the 21st century, in 2020, we're heading to a paradigm shift, a great big transformation on Earth. We're going to get UFO disclosure. We're going to get free energy. We're going to get the revelation of the spiritual reality. A whole lot is going to happen, and this is an exciting time to be alive.
It is, and I've said that exact words, Alex, before, is that, a lot's happening in our lifetime, and I really think we're about ready to witness the biggest shift in human history.
Oh, yeah.
And, be prepared, guys, because it's going to be epic. I mean, it's going to be scary for those that maybe haven't been following this and haven't been educated, but that's what we're here for. We're here to hopefully educate and bring to light what has been suppressed for so long and really get people to where they're comfortable with the idea that we are not alone in the universe. And I think that's fantastic.
And it's your job out there in the Twitterverse and on Facebook and on LinkedIn to tell your friends, to spread the message, get them to watch the show so we can increase public awareness and change the world for the betterment of all mankind.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the UFO Woman Show, that's been our mission since day one, is we are going to get the word out. We are going to bring on superior guests like yourself that are out there in the community, that are they're boots to the ground, so to speak. You guys are out there and you're trying to make a difference. You're trying to get elected this year. You're wanting to have all of these disclosure movements happen. You're sharing your own personal story, which is huge because a lot of people are afraid to come out and share their experiences. But I'm so glad that you have, because your experiences are hopefully going to help give others that confidence that they need to come out. Because up until now, people have been scared. They're worried of what their friends might think or what their family might think. And I think we're starting to reach that point where it's accepted. Now, you're no longer going to be looked at as, oh, did you hear, our neighbors having these crazy experiences? I don't think that's the case anymore. Do you? I mean, are you starting to see a shift in the mindset?
I'm starting to see a shift there. I mean, I don't really know what other people are experiencing other than what I see on TV and on YouTube. But I think it was so huge, that revelation that the Navy is validating this phenomenon.
Huge.
I mean, it changed the world. I mean, we've already had a form of disclosure. We haven't had full disclosure. But
it wasn't as big as I wanted it to be. You know, I mean, it happened in September of 2019. It was a wonderful day in the UFO community. Every major news network, Fox did a great job. I think of all the networks, they probably did the best because they've had Tucker Carlson on there with our buddy Nick Pope.
Right.
He's been on there regularly. So, kudos to Nick. He's always out there in the forefront, which is great. But, I wish it had been a little more front page news. I wish it had been on every single channel on television and every single social media outlet. It was to a certain extent, but there's still people that don't have a clue.
Well, Melissa, don't forget how highly controlled the U.S. mainstream media is.
True.
I mean,
True.
the CIA has assets and is doing work with all the major news networks. And who knows, maybe these networks are being instructed to ease off of this issue so we can get either a slow rollout of this information.
True.
So there are two ways it could happen. There could be a slow rollout or a partial disclosure, or there could be just a full onslaught, a full disclosure, and I don't think the U.S. government is going to do that.
I don't either.
And you can tell by the way they validated the UFO videos, and it
was soft, wasn't it?
Yes,
I mean, it was just kind of like tiptoeing.
Right.
You know, it wasn't like, oh, yes, this is what it is, you know.
And so, I think they're kind of trying to drive forward the narrative that they're just beginning to take this seriously.
Right.
When, in fact, I mean, we've had crash retrievals back in the 1940s.
Yeah.
So they already have spacecraft already in operation in space today.
True. This is true. Well, I just would have liked for it to have been a little more front page, you know, back in September. That's why we here at WeBeam TV is so awesome, because we stream all of our TV shows. We are not going to be censored like, you know, so many other shows are. So that's what makes this network so awesome. WeBeam TV, I'm super duper proud to be a part of it, to have my show on here. And, you know, this is what it might take. It might take, you know, shows like this that are streamed that are not going to be, as you like to say, censored as much. But let's talk about we got a few minutes left here before the show ends, and I want to talk about, you know, 1952, there was the mass sighting over Washington, D.C. It was huge. Do you think something like that could happen again? And do you think that if it did, would it take place in like Washington, D.C., or maybe New York City, or maybe on Super Bowl Sunday? Who knows? You know, I mean, have you thought about that? Like, what would happen?
I think it's important to remember that there is correspondence between ETs and the U.S. government.
So you think they're in cahoots with each other?
I think there is communication between certain factions of extraterrestrials and the U.S. government. So they're going to coordinate with each other to do this event. It's not just going to be a mass sighting.
You don't think they're just going to show up like Independence Day?
No, they wouldn't do
That's
that.
good. I kind of am glad
they're
about that.
They're going to communicate with us beforehand.
Okay.
And there's going to be probably an announcement or a official pronouncement or acknowledgement by our government and other world governments that the UFO, and the Vatican especially, that
they play a key part in a lot of this.
Yes, the Vatican is very important. Many people in the UFO community tend to ignore or reject the religious importance of the Vatican.
I got a question about that.
Sure.
I heard that the Vatican actually owns quite a few of the observatories around the world. Do you know anything about that?
Yes, the Vatican does own observatories, and they do employ astronomers. And most of their astronomers are also priests.
Okay.
So there was an interesting interview back in 2015 with, I hope I'm not saying his name wrong, Guy Cosmologo. I'm sorry, I probably butchered it, but he was talking about UFOs and aliens, and actually Pope Francis said recently that he would baptize Martians if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think I saw something about that.
And introduce them into the faith.
So, well, what would be interesting is, you know, if we had some sort of a mass sighting again,
right?
Like say in 2020,
right?
Do you think it would be covered up? Or do you think if it was a mass sighting to where it couldn't be covered up because we all have our cell phones and it's all, you know, basically live fed onto the internet? What do you think about that? I mean, do you think there would be an attempt to cover it up, or do you think they would be like, oh, yeah, they're here? I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, if a mass sighting were to happen, I mean, it's important to remember that they've already happened. I mean,
they've happened quite a few times.
You were at the Phoenix Lights,
right?
We also had the
they tried to debunk it, of course.
Yes, we had the sightings in New York.
Yeah. And recently.
Right.
In 2019.
Yes,
there's
been
more.
As well.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting. Like I said, you know, my guest a couple weeks ago, Kevin Briggs, is actually flying to New York City on February 1st and 2nd. He's going to be there with a film crew. And so if this actually happens, that he has been given the dates and the information about happening, he might actually be there and capture the whole thing on camera. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, so he received information that it was going to happen February 1st.
Yes, because 2020 is supposed to be the start of the new era, the
the age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't
I'll
it?
definitely keep my eyes peeled, and I'll be prepared on February 1st.
I know, me too. Well, he's going to actually be back on the show the following week. So he's going to come back to us, and whatever happens, I mean, we don't know yet, but if something happens, great. If not, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about, so what's the next steps? What's going to happen, after this?
This reminds me of the movie Ghostbusters 2, where Bill Murray had a psychic on his show, and he said the world was going to end, and the whole movie transpired from there.
Right.
It sounds something similar.
It does, doesn't it? Well, my goodness, I can't believe the time has just flown by. Can you?
It's gone. Yeah.
It has been, and we really thank you here at the UFO Woman Show for coming and sharing your campaign story, your personal experiences, your insight, and your predictions for 2020. We wish you the best of luck this year in your campaign, and maybe we'll get you back on here later on the show. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great. I'll be happy to come back, and thank you so much, Melissa, for having me.
Absolutely. That does it for here on the UFO Woman Show. I'm your host, Melisa Kennedy, and until next time, keep looking up.